Hello, welcome to the first episode of this mindfulness podcast with myself. My name is Marcus Schneider, and I'm excited to lead you through some of the work that I've been doing at the Moksha community here in Brantford and at addictions and mental health centers around the city of Brantford as well. And it's had a really positive impact on the individuals who have participated in the program, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we are talking about the mind. We're talking about how the brain functions. And it's something that we are all familiar with. We're all familiar with the fact that we have a brain, but nobody seems to have taken the time to show us how to use it, you know? And sometimes our brain can be quite a tricky animal, a little bit of a beast sometimes, and sometimes it can trick us into believing or doing or understanding things that just aren't serving us. They aren't treating us or giving us the things that we want out of life. And so then our brain can be a really big hang up and a divider between where we are right now and where we want to be. So rationally we can think about how we want to live and where we want to be and who we want to become. But there's something that stands in the way of being where we are right now and moving to the place that we want to be. Freeing ourselves up to be authentic, live freely, and ultimately live the lives we want. And I really have experienced in my own life that mindfulness is an amazing tool for helping me understand myself more clearly, to be able to free myself from some of the torment and the bondage that I've created for myself, and live a life that I really truly enjoy. And it all came from taking time to understand my brain, how it works, some of the pitfalls of my brain. Because this amazing tool that we have is very primitive at times, and it's very complex and amazing, and it deduces ideas and puts together concepts very quickly without even me thinking about it or rationalizing it. So I define mindfulness this way. It's a tool to discover the way that our thoughts work to influence the experience of our lives. Let me say that again. Mindfulness is a tool to discover how your mind influences the way you experience the world you live in. When you understand how your brain comes up with concepts and ideas, when you understand some of the pitfalls of your mind to focus on the negative, because that's what keeps you safe, versus looking at the positive. This isn't just about looking at the positive in your life. It's about understanding the emotions that exist inside of your body, how they manifest or fester in your mind, how they feel, and how they feel in your body as well. Because when you understand the language of your mind, then you can understand the experience of your current situation. And that's incredibly freeing. There's a lot to understand about the mind, so I'm going to be breaking this down into a series of videos. Welcome to part 1. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy this series. In order to understand the mind more clearly, we need to understand the nervous system, specifically the autonomic nervous system. That's the part of our bodily functions that happen without us even controlling them. It's the automatic part of the hormone production, temperature control, secreting the right amount of stomach secretion so that we can digest food properly. It's the part of our system or our function that we don't even think about. It controls the movement of blood through our body, from our internal organs into our limbs when we need it there, different parts of our brain, and that autonomic nervous system can be broken down into 2 parts. You've got the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest. It's the part of our function that allows our body to work when we're in a calm state. And then we've got our fight or flight response, which is incredibly important for keeping us safe and alive. It's the part of our body that reacts or responds to threat and stimulus that gets us worked up or anxious. It does this incredible thing to our body where it moves blood into our extremities so that our limbs work to function, run more quickly, to be stronger. It plumps up our muscles so that we can fight or we can flight in a given situation. And this is our sympathetic response. Our sympathetic response does a lot of amazing things to keep us safe. It recognizes that in this moment, the internal organs aren't nearly as important, so they take a back seat while your blood is flowing into your limbs. It secretes sweat out of your pores so that you can cool your body down in the midst of a stressful situation. It also sends blood to your amygdala, which is an important part of your mind to make really quick decisions. If you're standing in front of a threat, let's say it's a bear, you don't want to be deciding whether that bear is having a good day or not, or analyzing whether it's, what you should do and coming up with a whole bunch of different hypotheses. You want to react very quickly in that situation. We see examples of the sympathetic response or the fight or flight response even with threats that aren't threatening our life. Let's say threatening our ego. We're in an argument with somebody. We say something or do something that isn't consistent with our character. We get worked up and we say something that later when we're calm, we think to ourselves, did I really say that? That doesn't sound like me. That doesn't seem like me. And you recognize it as yourself. You recognize that you are the one who did that. But it just didn't seem or feel like the character of the person that you typically are. And that's your fight or flight response. It does this amazing thing to make a very quick decision. Sometimes those decisions are quite rash. And sometimes we regret the decisions in hindsight. Now, the parasympathetic response, that rest and digest response, is a super important function of our body because what that does is it regulates the amount of hormones that we're producing. It moves blood into your internal organs so that they function more optimally. It also sends blood to your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the decision-making part of it's the hypothesis part of your brain. It comes up with ideas and deduces all the different experiences that you have in the world to come up with solutions to problems. It's the part of your brain that is rational thinking. It's the part of your brain that actually separates you from other animals. See, the prefrontal cortex is unique to human beings the way that it's developed. It allows us to hypothesize ideas and thoughts and determine whether they're a good idea or a bad idea before we even unveil them. Before we even try it, we know that a meatloaf muffin probably isn't going to be too popular at the local bakery. We don't need to necessarily make a meatloaf muffin, get everyone to try it, to determine whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. People just don't really want to eat meatloaf muffins. They like meatloaf just the way it is. We can know that by using our prefrontal cortex. It's an important part of our mind, and when we recognize that these two aspects determine how our body and our mind function in any given situation, and that external and internal stimulus, both the thoughts of our mind and the experiences and the perception of our vision and our ears and everything else, all of our other senses, give us the opportunity to function in either one of these two realms. The rest and digest, the fight or flight. The fight or flight can get us into a lot of trouble sometimes because what happens in our society is that we actually spend a lot more time in our fight or flight response than we ever have before. You ever have the experience of being late for work? Maybe you have that experience every morning. You're feeling worked up, your heart is racing, you're rushing around, you're forgetting things. You're not thinking as clearly as when you're calm. It's a beautiful example of your fight or flight response kicking in. And then you get to work, you're rushing to work, you're frustrated by people cutting you off. Your fight or flight response increases even more. Your body is responding similar to a threat like it would experience a real life-threatening event. And then you get to work and your boss gives you chores or work to do, and you think to yourself, man, this isn't fair. And you're worked up and you're not even really sure why. It's a continuation of your fight or flight response, but the circumstances and events of your day will often continue to lead you down that path of being worked up, stressed out, frustrated. You get a text message you don't like, you receive emails that you don't want to respond to. All of these things can heighten your senses, heighten your fight or flight response, because your brain doesn't distinguish between a real physical threat in front of you and the perceived threat of losing your job, of being late for work, of getting into another fight with your partner. These are all real threats that you got to confront and experience on a daily basis, but we experience them so much more. Just look at your Facebook news feed, the experiences of the articles that are there. Oftentimes we read about events that are threatening to us. Our world leaders not making good decisions. Our planet, the planet that we live on, and rely on for life being snuffed out slowly. These are all threats to our experience. These are all threats, and our mind treats them like a bear, like a tiger, like a real life-threatening event that's experienced in this moment. Now, if you recognize that your fight or flight response has an impact on the way that your digestive enzymes work, it starts to make sense why when you feel stressed out, you can feel it in your chest. You can feel it in your abdomen. You can feel it in your mind, in that you're not making clear decisions. You're foggy. It doesn't make sense. You're having a hard time concentrating. Because the prefrontal cortex is not a priority when you're in that fight or flight response. The prefrontal cortex is a priority when you're in the rest and digest response. Now, recognize that these two parts of who you are, it's not an either or situation. It's not either you're in your fight or flight or you're in your rest and digest. It's more like a pendulum where on the one side you've got your fight or flight response, on the other side you've got the rest and digest response. And you find your experience of life somewhere on that pendulum. We move back and forth on that pendulum. Sometimes the stimulus of our environment increases the stress response. And sometimes the stimulus of our environment decreases the stress response and moves us over into the relaxation response. But if we're not responsible for the amount of time that we spend in a stress response or the amount of time that we spend in the relaxation response, we're absolutely subject to our experiences. We have no control over how much ease we're experiencing through our lives. We have no control over our digestive system, the hormones that are being produced, the temperature of our bodies even being affected by this. We're constantly confronted by stressful situations in the world that we live in today, and it's something we need to be responsible for. That's why mindfulness is such an important practice. Getting aware of which stimulus is impacting you right now. Whether this thought is producing the stress response or the relaxation response. Whether this commute to work is producing the stress response or the relaxation response. And how can you modify or adjust your experience of life? By recognizing that you're somewhere on this scale, somewhere on this pendulum, and that your goal needs to be finding balance between the stress response and the relaxation response. If you spend a majority of your life in the stress response, it's going to have an impact on your experience of life. It's going to have an impact on your health. If you spend more time in your stress response and your body is constantly functioning to keep you safe in this moment, it's going to ignore your internal organs. The long-term health and function of your organs is going to suffer so that your health will suffer. The other thing that's going to have an impact is your relationships. If your amygdala is constantly firing to make quick decisions, rash decisions, it's going to have an impact on the way that you talk to people, on the way that you relate to them, the way that you think about them. Your stress response gives you a very narrow viewpoint of your world. The relaxation response opens up your capacity to consider alternative options, ways of thinking, ways of being, ways of functioning in the world that produce more peace for yourself, for your community, and for your bodily health. That's why this work is so important. That's why I feel so passionate about sharing this information with you. Because by operating in the world of the stress response versus the relaxation response, you create peace. You can't not. You can't take yourself away from the stress response and experience less stress. So what is the function that allows you to move yourself from the stress response into the relaxation response? The only thing that we've been able to discover, the only thing that science has been able to discover is that deep breathing, calm breaths in and out, cause ease in the body, releases tension, and actually moves you over on that sliding scale from stress over to relaxation. Consider getting into your car and you rev the RPMs to 7,000, 8,000 RPMs, and you just kind of sit there with the RPMs revving at red line. What's going to happen to your car? gonna break down. Your repair bills are gonna go up. Because the function of your car is to operate in a wide range of states. The function of your body is to operate in a wide range of states, both in the stress response and in the relaxation response. But if you spend a lot of time in the stress response, you're going to experience some real damage to your internal organs, some real damage to the relationships that exist in your life. So how do we evoke the relaxation response? It's amazing. It's through your breath. Your breath is the only function that has a direct impact on your autonomic nervous system. Your breath allows you to move your function from the stress response over towards the relaxation response. It allows blood to flow back into your organs, your hormones to produce everything that it needs to function properly. It lets your amygdala quiet down, calm down, and it fires up your prefrontal cortex. Because your brain isn't in a situation now where it believes it needs to keep you safe. When you breathe deeply in and out, your brain says, oh, he must be okay, she must be okay. So then it puts its attention back to what it needs to do in order to keep you as healthy as possible. Your body takes care of that for you, but you need to take care of your breath. That's what we're going to be talking about throughout this series. Taking care of your breath to calm your body, to calm your mind, to create more peace in your life so that you have a better relationship with yourself, you have a better relationship with your friends, your family, your community. So how do we use our breath to keep us moving towards the rest and digest function of our nervous system? Well, we know that when we use our breath to breathe in deeply and breathe out deeply, it sends a message to our brain to assure us that where we are right now is safe. There's nothing to be concerned about, and that we actually have the opportunity in our environment to breathe, to be calm. Our breath is an amazing trigger for that. So as we breathe in and out, you might find a comfortable seated position. You might call it meditation. You might call it mindfulness. But what you're doing is you're keeping your attention to what's happening in this moment. You're not concerning yourself with the past. You're not concerning yourself with what's going to happen in the future. But you're experiencing your life as it exists right now in this moment. Right now as you're watching this. You're sitting. Maybe you're standing. You're breathing. Maybe your shoulders are tense. See if you can allow yourself to relax. So what are you doing in your mindfulness practice while you're sitting? What are you doing in your seated formal practice? Well, the first thing is you're breathing. You're breathing in and out through your nose. You're allowing yourself to experience your breath as it exists right now, to trigger your mind to be aware of the fact that where you are is safe. That there's nothing to be worried about, nothing to be concerned about. That you've picked a location or a spot and a time and place where you get to release the concerns and worries of your day. And then you're going to observe. You're going to observe your thoughts. As you're breathing in and out, thoughts will come into your mind. You're going to see them there like you're looking at thoughts from another person, like you're watching them on a TV, with a totally neutral perspective. Find your thoughts interesting. There's a common misconception in our mindfulness or meditation practice that we're supposed to be clearing our minds or getting rid of our thoughts. I'd like to suggest that you're going to clear your thoughts or clear your mind probably when you're dead. You know, the experience of most people who meditate and who practice this work is that, you know, you'll have a moment, maybe 2 moments where you're not thinking about anything. And then all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I'm not thinking about anything. And only to realize that now you're thinking about the fact that you're not thinking about anything. So it's the function of your mind to think. So rather than rejecting that or trying to push it away and actually creating stress around doing this practice wrong, just bring ease into your practice. Don't make it a problem that you think. Recognize it as a human function. It's part of who you are, and you're doing it right. The next thing I'm going to invite you to do is just to observe your thoughts. Observe what you're thinking. Observe the thought as if you were observing it in somebody else, and do that without judgment. Observe the thought like you're observing the thought in a child. You wouldn't whack a child over the head and tell them to stop thinking about that. It's just interesting. It just is what it is. Right? Our minds, we have very little control over, and this practice is not about trying to control your mind. In fact, it's just about allowing your mind to exist as it does, and accepting whatever comes up. So that as your mind thinks, you observe. And you observe that without judgment. You can even get interested in what you're thinking. My tummy's grumbling. Interesting. When was the last time I ate? I went to that restaurant and I met Susie. Oh shit, I was supposed to call Susie. Totally forgot about that. Just observe that thought, find it interesting. Interesting, I was meant to call Susie. Let me come back into my breathing. See, what we often do is we think to ourselves, I was supposed to call Susie. Man, I'm the worst at that. Every time I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I forget. I don't know what's going on in my life. I just have such a hard time concentrating, and you ramble on in your mind about the story about who you are, rather than just neutrally observing the thoughts that arise in your mind. That's the practice of mindfulness. And you can see how when you don't get hung up by the storyline of the dialogue that exists in your mind, it's much more easy to be peaceful about that. It's much more easy to just let it go. Let it be. Let the thoughts sit there like they're interesting to you. Curious. Look at me thinking about that. Interesting. My mind thinking. What a fascinating concept. Thinking thoughts. Having ideas. Seeing visions or ideas in my mind that seem to spontaneously erupt from nowhere. And once you're complete with that thought, once you've allowed it to be experienced by your mind, then it kind of loses its power. Alright, and then you move back into your breathing, back to the awareness of your inhales and your exhales. You might observe the breath at the tip of your nose, the back of your throat. You might even observe the way that your chest moves with each inhale and exhale that you take. Because the purpose here is not to do something. It's just to be something. It's to be yourself just as you are in this moment. And to exercise your capacity to accept who you are as you are in this moment.